All right. Looks like we're about ready to go here. We are live today on the Google Hangout for some of our members who couldn't make it in today. Carl San Miguel said the traffic's pretty bad here, so we might have a few people watching this on Google. So I want to welcome you all here. This is C.A.R. This is our last general membership meeting of the year. I'm your CEO, Neil Collins. Some of you may not have met me yet. And I wanted to take just a couple minutes to thank you. Thank you for the members for the support that you've shown me in this, my first year. I've really enjoyed getting out in the field and getting to meet you at a couple of the marketing meetings and so forth. So I kind of wanted to recap the year a little bit and go over a couple of the things that we had some success with. And we had a pretty good year. First off, membership's on the rise for the first time in about 7 years. So we're very excited about that. We had a successful launch of a marketing meeting in Evergreen, and I see some of the folks here that were very instrumental in that, including Joseph. We extended our tech support. We have free tech support. We extended that to all of our members, not just our primary members. We also brought back our Lunch and Learn series as a free member benefit and as a great way for our affiliates to kind of share their knowledge and expertise, and that's been wildly successful. And we brought back the convention, and I know we got a lot of, hey, I see the applause in the convention. Everyone loves the convention. Well, we're going to continue to grow that. We saw that as a great opportunity to engage members, and it certainly brought out a crowd of folks that we hadn't seen in a long time. And lastly, I want to talk about our foundation. Our foundation granted over $100,000 into the community this year for things like affordable housing, youth support, schools, parks. You know, these are things that build communities. These are things that get noticed. And I'm really proud of the work that they have done. And I'm really proud of the contributions of this group. Realtors build communities. You're a key component of economic development. And I thank you. I thank you for that. And, you know, to get all this done, even though I'm up here delivering the message, it takes a team. It takes a team of great leaders, and we have that. So I want to thank our board. I want to thank our committee members, our chairs who volunteer their time, and I want to thank our staff, our hardworking staff. And I know I pushed you guys this year, and you responded well. So to get all that done, we have this team. We need a quarterback. You know, it's football season. We need a quarterback. So I was happy to serve under a good quarterback this year. He was a two-timer, we might say, a veteran. So our quarterback this year and our president, Mr. Carl San Miguel. Come on up here, Carl. Let's get the meeting started.
Hello. Good morning. First item of the morning after our brief announcements here is the salute to the flag. So I'm going to ask Leanne Winston, our next year's president of the South County Association of Realtors, to come up and lead us in the pledge.
Thank you. All right, ready? Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you, Carl.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a few announcements to make this morning. And that is that the C.A.R. Annual Toy Drive will be held on December 5th. That's a Thursday. And it's at our usual spot, the Capital Club downtown San Jose. All of you know where that's at, right? It's a fun event. Encourage you to bring a toy or bring money so that we can supply a toy to a young individuals who receive that. Okay, so that's on December 5th from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. There are flyers in front of you there, I believe, that allows you to sign up for that. Also, next January 17th is the day for the installation of our next president, Myron von Racefield, and I won't see him here yet, but he will show up. And Myron has a connection with the 49ers. So we will be having the installation luncheon at the convention center just across the street from the new stadium. We'll see if we can actually work the stadium into the event. And there will be probably some tickets that'll be either auctioned off or raffled off for the 49er games that will be actually starting next year. For those of you who have not had the opportunity to tour that stadium, that is a great stadium. They have, I think it's 169 suites, and in the suite level there's a reception area that probably can accommodate about 300 people. So we were actually trying for that, but I don't think it's going to be quite done yet on the schedule, so we're going to be at the convention center across the street. So I would encourage you also, that I think the sign-up slip for that event is in front of you also. I'd like to recognize some double diamond corporate sponsors. Off-Price Carpets, are you here somewhere? Okay, they're an outstanding corporate sponsor of ours, and of course also Wells Fargo Home Mortgage. Wells Fargo here? Okay, next up is the Platinum Corporate Sponsors, and that's Tony Ventura, attorney at law, very good attorney. Bank of America, MLS Listings is here, actually. Jim Harrison, Jeremy, Nick, thanks for being here. Your mortgage team, see over there, aren't you? Okay. Shutterfly and Walls Inspection, property inspections. And also we have a Second Harvest food drive that is from today through December 23rd. Collection bins are out through the front of the office here for non-perishable and canned foods. And I don't know if you heard the news this morning, but Second Harvest Food Bank was hit last night. Took all the gas out of their vans for delivering, so they're kind of in a hard. Actually did some destruction of some of the vehicles, so they're going to need some assistance there at the Second Food Bank. So cash, of course, cash donations are always appreciated to help them out. Refreshment sponsors for this meeting are Bank of America, Your Mortgage Team, and MLS Listings. Thank you guys for supplying our bananas and muffins and coffee. I appreciate that. We are going to get to the MLS updates here very shortly, but I do have another announcement that Tracy wants me to announce with reference to there's a big sale here at the store. So before you leave, take a cruise over there. They have a lot of 10% off items. There's one that they have actually 15% off, and that's self-baking stamp that you could have made for you, and it's 15% off today. And then, of course, one last item over at the store. For those of you who like to have your name in front of your clients all year long, we have calendars here that you can give to your clients. Those are the magnet form, and I believe they're the other ones too. But they're also available here for you to take advantage of. Okay, so first up we have for the MLS update is our vice chairman of the MLS listings is Quincy Virgilio. Quincy, where are you? Oh, there you are. Okay, so Quincy, can you come up and give us the update on MLS?
Sure thing, President.
Thank you. Well, you know what? Speaking of that, Mr. President stuff, I was a little remiss here not recognizing that some of you past presidents are present with us here today, one of which is Quincy Virgilio. Thank him for actually continuing to serve us, because he was the president, what is it, 4 years ago? 5? Something like that.
So 2009,
Yeah,
however many
yeah.
years that's been.
Yeah, and also I see Steve Hanley over there, president back in 2003 or 4. Uh-oh. My phone.
You know what
Greg
that means
Haas,
when your phone goes.
yeah, right. Greg Haas and Carl Lee, you sneaked in over here somewhere. I saw you back there. There you are, Carl Lee. Mike Sevilla, Greg Haas, Dave Walsh is back there. And actually, Dave Walsh is still serving on the board of directors too, and Mike is. And Barbara Lamberis, last year's president. Rick Smith, I saw you around here somewhere. There you are. Satish Lalil, you're up in here in front. You're very brave. Right? That's what the instructors do when they up in the front of the room. So students never sit in the front row of the seats. And Bonnie Wilson, I saw you sneaking here. Where are you, Bonnie? Oh, there you are. Thank you for joining us here. So with that, did I leave anybody out? Anybody else sneak in? Okay, good. So Quincy, give us a little update on MLS listings.
My pleasure. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Is everybody here? Hello? Hello? Is this thing on? Good morning. Okay, so I'm here to represent the MLS listings. You know, everybody knows who MLS listings is, right? Right? Okay, good. Good response. Thank you. How does this work? Do I just push the... Thank you. Okay, so there's my name. Okay. There we go. So we've had some significant accomplishments in 2013. I'd like to give a lot of credit to Jim and his staff at MLS Listings for all the wonderful things that they've done and continue to do, not just last year, but since he's been here. Our MLS has transformed to be one that is recognized as one of the premier MLSs in the United States and globally. We actually have people coming from other countries now and looking at our MLS and seeing what we do to operate as an MLS and trying to find out how they can integrate our stuff into what they're doing. And I think we deserve to give Jim and his staff a big hand for what they're doing. So the first thing on our agenda is that we've coming out with a new public website, a new public-facing website that is going to be extremely interactive, and we're going to show you a piece of that as we go forward with the public, which is going to drive leads to you directly. And that's one of the things that we do. We've expanded our listening tours, and our listening tours are just that, where we go out and actually listen to what our members, our subscribers are saying. And two of the areas that we were listening about was off MLS marketing, people who are not putting properties on the MLS, and the boundaries, all the issues that we have with some of our boundaries and our zones. And so we go out and we talk, we hear, and we try to get an idea of what our members want. And that's really important to us at MLS Listings, that our members, our subscribers, are involved and communicative with us about how things are operating. And so it's important that when those tours are out there, that you're there to speak with us. And we'd like to hear your responses. It's the things that we've been doing on the website too, for your participation in understanding what's going on. You can comment, you can add comments to things. It's very much geared toward understanding what you need in the marketplace. Our technology is just beyond belief. The industry recognition that we continue to get is off the charts. So we have technology that is being used in our MLS that wants to be shared with other MLSs across the nation. Our leadership team is involved on many levels of national boards, things called RESO, which is a Red Standard board, the National Association of Realtors. Jim serves on just about every committee. Jeremy speaks at all kinds of things that are going on around this country. Our technology is light years ahead of what's coming up the pipe in other MLSs. And that's one of the reasons why we're recognized as one of the premier MLSs in the nation. So it's not just what you see when you look for your listings or put your listings in. There's so much going on, and you're going to see that in our new website that's coming out for the public and for what's coming on for us. Did I miss anything? Okay. Next. This is our My Info page. You can go online now, of course, and update your information. You should, because this lead generation that's coming, this driving leads to you from the public-facing website, you want your information to be accurate, and so you just have streamlined information capture. You go online, you can check and update your information on a regular basis. You don't need to call in to say I changed my telephone number or my email address. You can do it all yourself, and you can call it if you like, because the MLS is always there to help. I mean, who hasn't gotten an answer when you call in for support during the day? Anybody? No, it doesn't happen. It's top notch. So our new public website preview is going to come out. It is December, and this is what our lead generation is going to be doing here. Jim, was this supposed to have something else on it? There we go. Thank you. So there's a meeting place that's going to be there where consumers, you can actually invite your consumers or your clients to meet with you online at the MLSlistings.com site, the public-facing site, where you can invite them to answer their questions. Only our subscribers can view that, though, so can answer. Nobody else can. So as a member of our MLS, you have the ability to answer people's questions, interact with people who are looking online at your listings, and other listings perhaps, and then also invite people to meet you there to show them listings. Very high tech. Consumers can quickly search for you as an agent quickly, and the technology that's going inside of this that makes it so fast is what Jeremy works on a regular basis. It's not, I'm not a tech person. I just know that it's going to be light years faster than it was before to be able to access this information across the web. So logging in using your MLS credentials, you can see who's viewed your listings, how many times they were seen, and you can send, of course, email or answer any questions that come up on your listings through that as well. So you have an accurate tool that you can represent to your clients and say, this is how many people from the public are seeing your website, your property on our website. Is that valuable? Yeah, absolutely. So this is kind of a look at what the feel of what our new homepage is going to look like. It's very clean. It's based on what consumers are looking for in a website. It's easy to access. It's easy to navigate. And here's like a property detail page. You see some changes here. Again, the focus on the property with the main photo, and then they can glance through the gallery of photos as well. And I believe that we're having a gallery actually coming in where people can look up stuff like, you want to know how many, I need bathrooms with, rainfall showers, for example, right? And you can, and those will come up as in your gallery. People can look at those listings that just have that feature. So lifestyle is a big thing in what people are going to be using for searching the MLS. So this is a very, very important tool that's coming out for you. Okay, here's a little bit about the market. You all know that things are increasingly heating up because why? Hi, Jennifer. Because inventory is so low, right? And here's our median price increases across the counties that our MLS serves. You can see, of course, that everyone is increasing. And while prices are increasing, what's going up is sales are going down because there's not as much inventory. So any questions that need to be answered there? You all know this stuff, right? And you all use this in your listing presentations, right? Okay. So off MLS activity continues to increase. Who has encountered off MLS activity? Anybody? Does everybody know what that means? Okay. So we're going to show you some numbers here. In 2011, there was about 11.8% of our inventory was sold off market. In 2012, it slightly rose to 14.5%. And this is the first 3 quarters of the year, 21.1%. So the issue is here to stay, and I don't think it's going to go away. So, let me go back to that just so you can see that. So, does everyone understand? You've heard the listening tour. Have you talked about this in your offices, about the reasons why off MLS marketed properties are really kind of bad for our industry? Does anybody know that? Do I have to go through that? We have a discussion on that? No? Okay. You all know how bad it is. Okay, so this is going forward. In 2014, we have lots of initiatives coming forward, and this is just the highlights of what's happening. We had a tremendous strategic thinking meeting this year with some top-notch people from around this country that represent the leaders in our industry, giving us insights and information. And from that, we came up with some, I say, as all the directors and presidents and association executives and staff came up with some initiatives that Jim and his staff are working on. And I think there were 52 pages of notes that came out of that meeting, and we're going to condense that down to a few things. So we're evolving our .com, which the .com is considered the public-facing site. That's the .com. For better integration with our back-end, our matrix system, for more effective at driving leads to you, which is important. Is that not important? Everyone thinks that's important? Nobody wants leads? We can drive them all to me. It's okay. Trying to pull traffic away from other portals. And, of course, new marketing tool which is coming out is called a Twitter card. Has anybody heard about a Twitter card? Does anybody know what it is? Phenomenal thing coming out where you can post a post on your, a tweet that's a card that will take them directly to your listings. So it'll show them photos, everything, off a little card that you post on your tweet. Is that valuable? Oh, unbelievably. Consumer engagement, we're coming up with strategies for our constituents to have better engagement with our consumers. We talked one about the ability to talk with them while they're on the website, to be able to answer questions and be able to interact and invite people to it. Improve subscriber engagement. Who's familiar with MSLAG? Anybody? You know what that is? That was developed to help integrate products into our system about 7 years ago, I think. And it's a group of 30 subscribers originally that test products, talk about problems and issues that come up with the MLS, and try to integrate the solutions. And we're going to improve that. We're going to actually restructure that to do better things for all of our members to enjoy. IP productization, we're partnering to market other products that are relative to our business. And the API development, that's what I was talking about the speed of things. I mean, I can't talk about what it means, how the technology works, but this API development is light years ahead of everything else. So everything doesn't have to go through RETs. Thank you. It's going to be a direct API, which is going to speed things up and incredible technology. We have a new matrix release coming out, but it'll be later in the year next year. Not during the busy season, so you don't have to worry about things to learn while you're trying to put all your listings in. And of course, our branding and media. Has anybody seen the ad on NBC, by the way? NBC we drive the NBC. Our technology drives their system for them to have people go look at property through NBC. And we're doing that with newspapers, we're doing it with other stations, and we're expanding that. Jim's team is phenomenal at getting our brand and on your listings out into the world. So that's going to continue to evolve. Our theme for the future, and these are things that came out of our strategic initiatives meeting. We're going to be agile. We already are very agile. We're going to increase our agility to be able to shift with what's going on in the marketplace and in technology. We learn humbly, and we've all learned humbly, I think, in our real estate lives, that we continue to do so. There's Myron. Myron, say hi. There's your president next year, Myron von Graysfeld. And we succeed together with our subscribers, together with our constituents. We succeed with you and continue to do so. These are our themes for the future. We are going to be innovators, leaders in our industry, leaders in technology, market savvy, and of course, we are going to be the MLS of choice. I want to thank you. If you have any questions, you're certainly welcome to send them to Jim, CEO at MLSlistings.com. And I look forward to continuing serving. Thank you very much.
All right, Quincy, thank you. And we will have, if you think about it, the next hour, we will have an opportunity to do a Q&A later on. And if you think of something during this time that you have interest on MLS, maybe even if you have something you would like to make a comment from the standpoint of why don't we do that or this, you're welcome to it, because we have staff here. Tricia Motter kind of stuck in. She's the Vice President of the Association this year. I'd like to acknowledge her presence here. Of course, Myron showed up. I already told him about your party next month, actually in 2 months. So you're good to go there, Myron. All right, so next up, we're going to have a little report. Now, we've had 2 meetings that occurred on the statewide and national-wide from our last general meeting. So we have 2 gentlemen here that are going to give you a presentation from the standpoint of what transpired during those meetings. And first up is Mike Sibilia. He's our regional chair for C.A.R. And he will inform you of our meeting in Long Beach. Come on over, Mike.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So we had our C.A.R. California Association of Realtors meeting last month in October, mid-month, and a lot of discussion, a lot of dialogue, and basically what C.A.R. is for is kind of what we do down here, is to protect private property rights as well as protect our industry and our organization. So some things we debate quite a bit, and we either move forward and have an action item, or we debate and decide not to have an action item. So I'm going to give you some examples of both. Before we get started on what we did, I just want to reiterate what used to be called Department of Real Estate. It was changed to BRE which was now changed again to Cal BRE. So if you're changing your marketing material, please change it not to BRE, but to Cal, capital C-A-L, capital B, capital R, capital E. We did talk to the commissioner, and he is not going to be putting any penalties if we're slow to make the changes. It was a mistake on the part of the department to change it to BRE without checking to make sure that someone else didn't have dibs on those names. So as a result, please, in the future, change it to Cal BRE. That were discussed and debated, and no action item took place, was the problem of the homeowners associations with homeowners that are defaulting on paying their dues, especially the investors or the non-occupants that are collecting rent from the tenants, but the owner is not paying their HOAs. So we have a dilemma as organized real estate where we talk about private property rights. Well, it was debated, should we sponsor a legislation at the state level to enforce the association to be able to collect from the tenants unpaid HOA dues and out of the rent, and then the tenant can pay the balance to the investor who's delinquent on paying. That was hotly contested, hotly debated, and the bottom line is we did not move forward with that. It's really an issue protecting private property rights. The individual owner, should he should be able to do what he wants to do with it, yet you have a whole bunch of other homeowners that are being penalized because one person is not paying the dues. So I don't expect this to go away. It will still be talked about at our future C.A.R. meetings. Another thing that took place is that the state and the national association are going to start enforcing, making sure that everyone pays their dues. And the way they're going to enforce it is they're going to penalize the local association. They're going to build a local association if people that are brokers that are members have agents that are not paying their dues. The national and C.A.R. are going to be billing our association as well, all the other state associations for those dues. So as an association, we are going to be billing the broker for non-payment. So be aware of that, brokers. Another item that was discussed, and we always do this every year, 2 times a year, we have the forms that are revised or new forms are introduced, April and November. A couple forms, there was like 50 forms that we revised for the November date now. But a couple important forms that we see that are important to us is the counteroffer has been changed, and that's been changed to separate both the multiple counteroffer and a regular counteroffer. So there's now 2 forms, which used to be just 1. And another important item is the listing forms. Quincy was talking about the off-market listings. So now all the listings have a lot of verbiage for the consumer protection, how it's important that the seller knows that if it's going to be off-market, it's probably not in their best interest, or to talk about the pitfall. So each listing, whether it be commercial, whether it be residential, has that information about off-market listings. Be aware, the next big release in April, one of the big forms that's going to be revised is our purchase agreement. There's a lot of revisions to that. Look for that coming in April. We'll have a lot of classes here and introduce you to the changes when they come into effect. Another item that we wanted to make sure, especially in the state, it's a statewide problem, not so much locally here, but we're having problems with fire insurance. So we instructed C.A.R. to create a C.A.R. Legal to create a Q&A regarding fire insurance, as well as for the consumer on a consumer advisory on how to shop for fire insurance. There's difficulties going on for areas that are in forests and not city services, insurance rates that are difficult. First of all, difficult to get insurance, fire insurance, and number 2, the rates that that are going up on there. One of our big successes, and I'll conclude with this before I introduce our NAR directors, is while we were in at C.A.R. in Long Beach, we were lucky to have, and through a lot of efforts on C.A.R.'s part, Governor Brown veto AB 1229, a bill that was passed in Sacramento, and basically it was for rent control. And the bill proposed to dramatically weaken rent control limitations that we, as an association, got into the back in 1995, and it was to undo the Costa-Hawkins protection. It allowed local governments to impose inclusionary zoning on newly constructed single-family and rental housing developments. It would have been a real setback for our industry, real setback for future new construction, and luckily we made sure Governor Brown knew that this was not a good idea, and he vetoed it. So that concludes my report. Thank you very much. I'd like to introduce to you, I'd like to recognize first our NAR directors. Dave Walsh, who will be giving a presentation on NAR last week in San Francisco, as well as Carole Lee is our other NAR director. So thank you very much. Dave Walsh.
Okay, good morning. All right, so you wonder where your dues go every year, right? 50 cents of your dues sent me to San Francisco last week. So thank you very much for your 50 cents. I appreciate your contribution. Okay, so there are two representatives at the NAR level, the national level, and that represent our associations. Carole Lee, Carole in the back, myself. It's actually kind of a very interesting position to be in. We are, in case you don't know, Silicon Valley is the most respected real estate market in the nation, in my opinion. And I've been around 35 years, back and forth to Washington, D.C., back and forth to all the NAR meetings at the state level, local level, et cetera. And I'm telling you that's exactly what the truth is. So you work in the most vibrant real estate market in the nation, and everybody wants to know about us. So it's really interesting to see, and it's really interesting to be part of, to go into meetings. For example, I was in one meeting, and one of the things that John was talking about, the economies of the nation, what was happening, et cetera. And so they asked a general question. I raised my hand and said, well, here's what's happening in Silicon Valley, right? Everybody turned, and everybody started handing me business cards. They all want to know what's going on in Silicon Valley. So it's a tremendous opportunity for us as an association to be represented at the state level and the national level, like with Carole and what we do out there. So congratulations to you for making this such a vibrant market. Now, the national report is really boring. It takes like 5 days of meetings, and I condensed down into about a 3-minute presentation because you really don't want to hear the rest of the stuff we sat through. All governance issues, and you really don't care what's happening with land rights in Mississippi, et cetera, and I understand that. So I'm going to tell you what's relevant and important to you, and hopefully something will pique your interest about what's coming at us, and you'll understand why we're at these national meetings and why it's important to be there. First of all, let's talk about flood insurance. Now, not paid into the Bigger Waters Flood Act. Bigger Waters Flood Act took effect October 1st of this year. If you have a listing, or you're working on a listing that has flood insurance requirements, be aware you need to check immediately what that might mean. In other words, what's happening is there's all these new flood insurance rate maps, firms, that are coming out. Your property may or may not be in one of those new flood maps. If it's in one of the new flood maps, your old insurance rate, flood insurance rate that may have been tied to that property, may not be applicable anymore. Now, there are reports of flood insurance programs, policies going from $800 to $900 up to $5,000 to $10,000, okay, per property. One agent stood up in one of my meetings, and she's from Charleston, South Carolina. Okay, she sells an average of $200,000 properties. Her community is all $200,000 properties. She said they're currently getting ratings of $40,000 per house if they're trying to finance that property because of the new flood insurance change that took effect October 1st. So I'm telling you this to make you aware. If you are in a property, you're working on a property, you take listings in a flood insurance claim, immediately check with your insurance agent so that they can check with the federal program to find out what the rating's going to be on that property. Okay, now, not all properties, hear me very clearly, 80% of the properties are not going to change, all right, because they're incorrect maps. We don't have all the correct maps here yet. So, what does that mean? You could be the lucky recipient of a $5,000 premium increase, right? So just check it out. Now, how do you get around this? What do you do? How do you deal with this? There's called elevation certificates. Okay, every property that's in a floodplain has an elevation certificate. If it is an old elevation certificate, it may not be applicable for the future if it's not based on the current flood insurance rate map. All right, so what do? You need to check with the insurance agent. If the insurance agent says, okay, this is your new rate, then you need to check it for accuracy because FEMA does not have accurate data on all the properties. They kind of do, but that's why we're getting these huge premium increases. In theory, there's one rate for one property set by FEMA. One example they gave us, the premiums are quoted between $5,000 and $20,000 from 6 different sources. Now, how can that be? Right? It's because FEMA didn't know what was going on. Now, here's what the actual rate ended up being, $480. When they got, because there was all this miscommunication and misinformation out there, they actually got an expert at the highest level of our federal government to check into what the actual rating on that property should have been. And when they went through the whole process, it was $480. So you can imagine what our consumers are facing right now. So here's why I'm telling you this. If you're in, like I said, in any kind of situation where you're either trying to buy a property or you're trying to sell a property in a flood insurance area, make sure you check it out from day one. Okay? Now, here's the good news. There's 2 bills pending in Congress right now. One in the Senate, one in the House, to put a 4-year moratorium on this flood insurance program. Right? We know it's screwed up. There's unintended consequences. Right? As there always is with legislation. That's what our government does best. They create unintended consequences, right? So there's a 4-year moratorium. You're going to get a red alert. Your red alert may come out today. It may come out Monday. It may come out Tuesday. Please pick up the phone. Call your congressperson. Okay, and tell them, yes, vote for this extension of 4 years. It's simply kicking the can down the road for 4 years until they get this whole thing sorted out. Because clearly, it's a mess. Right? $40,000 premium on a $200,000 house, give me a break. Right? So that's flood insurance. Let's see. Big items we talked about. Tax reform, FHA reform, GSE reform, and the flood insurance program. GSE reform is simply Freddie and Fannie. Right? You all know what GSEs are, right? So, just for your edification, there's a lot of pressure to get rid of Freddie and Fannie. We've all heard that. You've all seen it. You know that Freddie and Fannie made $8 billion in profits last quarter. $8 billion. Okay? So tell me again why we're getting rid of this. Right? Right? So the idea here is that there is pressure for GSE reform, but they've never made this kind of money before. So with any hope, with any luck, they don't get involved. The last thing we want is the government to get involved and change things one more time. There's a lot of pressure for GSE reform. But $8 billion in profits, speaking pretty loudly. Even the most jaded of Congress people are now paying attention to that. Potential government shutdown. The next government shutdown is scheduled for, we run out of money January 15th and we close February 7th. So what happened the last time to the housing market? Well, you know what? You all know, because remember there was kind of a slowdown around September, around October. The housing market kind of took a little bit of a nosedive. In fact, it was reported in the Mercury News yesterday. Right? Slowdown in the housing market. Now, I'm not saying it's 100% attributable to the government shutdown. But guess what? It was like a wet blanket on a pretty vibrant housing market, not just locally, but nationally. Right? And it truly did impact other areas of the nation, because it's a consumer confidence issue, is it not? I mean, are people really willing to go out and buy houses when the government's not functioning anymore? Right? And they typically don't. So, when's the next one scheduled? January 15th, we ran out of money. February 7th, we shut down. What does that happen to be in the middle of? Our spring market. Okay? So historically, we have a very vibrant spring market, as does the rest of the nation. So the big fear is they're going to do stupid things again, and we're going to end up with a wet blanket over a typically vibrant housing market that kind of gets out of the chute real fast in February and March, and all of a sudden we have no government again, and they shut down. Here's a sidelight. Hillary Clinton spoke at the NAR meetings in San Francisco last week, and she made a very interesting point. Was anybody there to see that besides me? A couple people? Okay, now, I thought she was very interesting. She had a very candid point. Here's one of the points. She was at, and I don't remember the details of where she was, but she was someplace very important, like at a G8 conference or something, when the government shut down. Now, Obama was not there. Why? Because he couldn't get there. The federal government shut down, right? And plus he needed to be here, right? But so she's there, and she hears these dignitaries, these high-ranking financial people in these countries, saying things like, maybe, just maybe, we need to start basing the world's currency on something else other than the American dollar, right? And she said that was the big fear that she came away from these meetings, because when we do stupid things, we can't even figure out how to run our own government and keep our country financially solvent. Why would the rest of the world trust us? So that's one of those implications to stuff like the government shutting down. But again, we don't know this. I'm just telling you what's coming down at us. Okay, dual agency situation. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are trying to get rid of dual agency in their short sales. Okay, so this is just a proposal. It's not official yet, but there's a lot of pressure, and I'm just telling you in advance, a lot of pressure to prohibit dual agency in a short sale. Now, a lot of you say, well, that's not a bad idea. But the true prohibition of dual agency is far more reaching than the listing agent not being able to sell their own listing, right? It means something like with my company, since I'm a law and Pinnell, that means if a law and Pinnell agent takes that listing, no law and Pinnell agent can represent a buyer. If you're a Caldwell Banker, no Caldwell Banker agents can represent that buyer, right? That's a huge change to how we currently done it, right? So again, it's not official yet, but there's a proposal. Why? Because we aren't always honest, right? There's been a lot of abuse. You know, you've seen them. Those offers you try to present to the listing agent and say, oh, no, I'm sorry, it's already sold. You check the MLS, it's still current. But say, oh, no, it's already sold, right? We know the games that realtors play, right? Or the games real estate agents play. But anyway, that's why they're trying to do that. Tax on phantom income. The federal tax relief for phantom income on short sales sunsets this December 31st, right? So the federal program allowing tax relief sunsets this December 31st. It sunsetted last December 31st for the state of California. So you're aware that income on a short sale at this moment in time will be taxable, okay, currently. All right, so when the December 31st date comes around, you'll have no protection, no federal protection, no state protection. So just be aware of that. Now, why am I telling this? Just don't quote inaccurate data. Don't say things like, oh, don't worry about it. It will pass. It'll come back. Because guess what? It may not. Our Congress is so dysfunctional that we don't know what the heck they're going to do anymore. Okay, so just don't quote, especially into next year's timeline, 2014, that, yeah, go ahead and sell your short sale. Don't worry about your debt relief. They will never tax you, because they probably will. Okay, I see Carole's here, so I'm going to go through really fast the final couple thoughts here. GDP growth will be sluggish in 2014. That's not rocket science. What? It's 1.6%, 1.8% for the quarter. Here's a measurement for you to compare to. Okay, first of all, flipping hamburgers in McDonald's in North Dakota is now $18 an hour. Okay, so send your children to North Dakota. They can have a lot of money. What's gross domestic? What's the GDP number for China? What's the GDP number for China last quarter? 7.5%. 7.5%. And they're considering a stimulus package, right? So that's a huge difference, right? From 1.6, 1.8 to 7.5. Okay, risk management. Who texts their clients here? Oh, come on, raise your hand. Any realtors here? Raise your hands, right? You text your clients. Don't lie to me, I'm a manager. Okay? No, because here's what I'm trying to get you to understand. Okay, if you text your clients, you need to be committed to printing those texts out. Okay, if you aren't printing your texts out, or you say that's too much of a headache, don't text your clients. We had a risk management presentation on litigation, and as you all know, because you pay attention, and your managers tell you all these things, that the big thing, the big lawsuit focus now is on electronic communications. Okay, here. Are we losing battery? Switch off. Okay. Testing. electronic communications. That means emails, and that means texts, right? So now, at close of escrow, you're supposed to get all your texts together, all your emails together, turn them into your files so that you have these as part of your permanent record on that transaction. Agents never print out texts. I shouldn't say never. Most of you probably don't. So the attorney said, either text your clients and print them out, or never text a client. Okay, so those are two choices you have to make, because you simply can't rely on A, your memory, or B, the text, especially if you don't keep the text. The last thought, and this is fun, when you realize how strange the rest of the world is, well, the rest of the nation, not even the rest of the world. New York State, for $500, 500 bucks, sellers can buy their way out of seller's disclosures. Isn't that a great idea? I'm going to start a new cottage industry here. True story, 500 bucks, because the transactions are closed by attorneys. Right? The attorneys in New York say do not complete seller's disclosures. They advise them not to. So for $500 extra, they will represent you if you ever get into some kind of litigation over not completing seller's disclosures. Whole different state. So I think we should do that. I think we should come up with a program in California for just simply $500. Our sellers no longer have to tell us anything we know about the property. Isn't that strange? Bizarre, right? A whole different world of looking at real estate. Okay, I have a ton more stuff, but our special guest speakers here. So Carl, you want to come up and introduce Carole? But thank you for your time.
Isn't that great information? Both Mike Sevilla and Dave Walsh doing an excellent job for us. Next up is a little individual, but with powerful comments and thoughts, and a great amount of experience, far exceed her height, and I can relate to that. But they always entertaining and always informational guru on the state of the economy is Carole Rodoni. Thank you, Carole.
Thank you. Good morning. Thanks, everybody. Okay, we have a lot to talk about, so I am going to start. I want to talk a little bit about this economy, then I want to talk about the San Francisco Bay Area's economy. I want to talk about your real estate market, how it started the year, how I think it's going to end the year, and then I want to talk about what I think is going to happen the next 3 or 4 years out, and I want to talk about some of these buyers and sellers and what's going to be coming at you. So let me start with this economy, and you know, the economy, the Federal Reserve projected that it would be at 3.5% GDP by the end of the year. Obviously, that's not going to happen. We just heard that we obviously are moving a little bit too slowly, and I think we're probably going to end the year at about 2.5%, which is where we were last year. Now, that's not bad, it's positive, but it's certainly not an economy as a Ferrari running down the freeway. It's more like a Ford kind of struggling down there. So at the end of the day, have we come out of this recession? Yeah, we're slowly getting out of it, but there are things about it that we are still stuck with and that we don't like. Obviously, one is the unemployment number, and it's very interesting because last week we said that we had 204,000 basically new people that were employed, but you have to remember that 1/3 to 2/3 of those were part-time employees. They're not full-time, and that's been our problem. So when you look at the number and they tell you it's 7.2, oh, look great, it went up to 7.3, oh, gee, it went down a little bit, that's not what's really important. What's really important is the kind of jobs we're getting, because we need to get full-time, not part-time jobs. So that continues to be an issue. Obviously, the fact that we have a dysfunctional, irrational Congress and government really is basically getting to be frustrating for all of us. And I have decided that they're an adult daycare Montessori center, and that's it. And at the end of the day, if you understand that about them, then you can understand what happens in government, and nothing that they do will ever surprise you. And I have no great hopes for anything coming down the pipe from them, because they just don't seem to have a brain between the 2 ears in their head. So at the end of the day, what we can expect is nothing from them. But you know what I'm beginning to think? I'm beginning to think that when they do nothing, it's better than when they do something, because when they do something, it isn't right anyway. So maybe it's better they just do nothing. So at the end of the day, what do we have? Well, we still have a spending problem, a deficit problem, a taxation problem, a debt ceiling problem, and all those things. But what's very interesting, and let's go back and let's talk about how did we even get to where we were the last month. Well, if you go back to the prior year, if you remember, they set up this wonderful committee of equal Democrats, equal Republicans, and they were supposed to deal with spending and taxation and our debt ceiling, okay? And obviously they didn't get along, and you know, they didn't do anything with spending, and they basically did raise the debt ceiling because we have to pay our debt. They did take care of taxes, however, so they raised everybody's tax rate, so the top rate now is 39.6%. They took away the credit that we were getting for payroll taxes, and it was 4.2%. They brought it back up to 6.2%. And of course, the big one was what they hit us with capital gains. And with capital gains, what they did was, we used to be at 15%, they raised us to 20% this year, and then starting in January, because of the Obama health care, if you have an income of $250,000 and you're making passive income, which means what? Dividends, stocks, rents, basically anything from real estate, anything from rental income, there is an additional 3.8% that's going to be taxed onto your capital gains. So we went from 15% last year all the way up in some cases to 24% this year. That is why when you read that we were supposed to have a deficit this year on our budget of $1.1 trillion, that we are basically doing so well because it's only going to be $700 billion now. Well, when you go back, let's talk about that. We take in about $2.3 trillion in taxes every year in this country, but the problem is we spend $3.1 trillion. So at the end of the day, how did this deficit go down if basically we still aren't doing anything with spending? Because of all the increased taxes that came in. That's what basically offset it, because they did nothing with spending. Now with spending, what happened to them because they did nothing? Well, there was a penalty that was basically put on them because they couldn't do anything, and that was called the sequester. And the sequester is something that everybody hates. It's basically $1.1 trillion that's to be taken out of the economy over the next 10 years. And we started it basically this year. It's been about $50 billion this year. Next year, it'll be about $100 billion. And everybody hates it because it's very restrictive. It's only dedicated to certain departments, and it doesn't give them any flexibility. So they moved into this year, and the group that basically couldn't get along last year decided that this year, kumbaya, everybody would be lovely. It would be a lovely marriage. They'd all get along, and life would be wonderful. So what do you think they did? They sat down, and of course the clock keeps ticking and ticking and ticking, and they got absolutely nowhere. And so they went into what they called a government shutdown. Well, first of all, it wasn't a shutdown. Only 20% of the government shut down, so it was more of a slowdown. But, you know, the world takes notice of that, and everybody, oh, my God, oh, dear, the biggest economy in the world, we're going into shutdown. The second thing was that they said we were going to default on our debt. Now, look, guys. We take in $2.3 trillion in basically, we said taxes. The interest on our debt now is $330 billion a year. So we certainly could have paid our debt, all right? So what did they do at the end of the day? Absolutely nothing. They did the Hail Mary, which is kick the can down the road. So this is what this big committee came up with. And this shutdown or slowdown cost us $300 million a week. 17 days into this, cost us 0.5% on our GDP. And at the end of the day, here's what these bright, brilliant minds of Congress come up with. We'll continue spending the way we spent last year, and we'll do that till January. We're going to raise the debt ceiling to $17 trillion. Isn't that wonderful? And we'll do that till February the 7th. And in the meantime, we'll set up another panel and another committee. And between now and December, where they're going to be at work for about 3 days out of the whole rest of the year, we're going to come up again with the wonderful plan, and we'll deal with budget and spending and another debt ceiling. So my feeling is they're going to put a Band-Aid on a gaping wound. When they get to the end of the day, they'll tweak it a little bit, you know, and that'll be it. And then they're going to extend everything again for another 3 to 4 months. Now, here's what's wonderful when you think about what happened. Here's the largest economy in the world, right, that basically goes into shutdown. And yet, look at the stock market. We had the best October we've ever had in the last 5 years. This morning, we were at 15,800. And so the powers that really be, and what are they? The powers that really be are basically Wall Street and the bond market. So the stock market basically told them to shove it and said, basically, we don't care what you do back in Washington because you don't know what the hell you're doing anyway. So we're basically going to take this stock market and make it absolutely desirable. And if you looked at the bond market, the 10-year note at one time had creeped up to 3%. It went back down and basically was at 2.6. It's at 2.7, 2.70 this morning. So the bond market, which means the people around the world that basically lend us our money, basically said the same thing to Congress. So that's absolutely wonderful. So let me talk a little bit about basically the bond market and the stock market. You go back to when we started this recession, the Dow was down to 7,000, and look where we are now. People have basically gotten all their money back, plus we're up 24-25% for the year. I think the stock market is going to be absolutely stellar going forward, and I think that you have a good couple of years left in this market. It is not overpriced. The bond market's been very interesting. Let's go back and let's look at what happened to the bond market. Well, you know, Mr. Bernanke, who's the Federal Reserve Chairman, is going to be leaving in January, and he's going to be running for that door as fast as he can, saying, don't give me a retirement party. I don't need anything. Let me just get the hell out of here. Let me just get out of here in one piece, alive, breathing, and well. Now, you know what the books are going to do. Some people are going to say he's a hero, and some people are going to say, look what he did. He leveraged the world, and the way that he got us out of this recession was to increase more debt to get us out of debt. Because the federal balance sheet used to be at about $800 billion, and it's now sitting at $4 trillion. Well, you know, Mr. Bernanke was left with two rotten choices when he walked in the door, and sometimes you got to pick the one you think is the least worst of all of them that you've been given. So he could have said, okay, here we are, we're in a recession, it's going to be a depression if we don't do something. Businesses aren't lending, banks are going under, General Motors is going under, AIG is going under, we have all these bad debts, all these foreclosures, all these short sales. So I can just sit here and let the markets correct themselves, and they would have, but it would have been deeper and much deeper and harder. Instead, he said, look, who's the only entity big enough to come in and do something, and that's the United States government. So he opened those Xerox machines downstairs at the Treasury and said, baby, let's start printing those dollar bills, honey. And forget the dollars, let's make them hundreds, and we just keep those presses moving 24 hours a day, and we put everybody on a sugar diet. Hey, life is good. You can have whatever you want. Come one, come all. Come General Motors, AIG, you got a bad bank, we'll buy it. You got bad assets, throw it my way. I'm taking everything that's crap out there today. Today it's open. Come one, come all. So that's exactly what he's been doing. Now, I never thought he believed it would go on as long as it did, because now that everybody's on the sugar, they all like it, and it's been hard to get us off of it, and he hasn't been able to do that yet. What's been really interesting is when he did that, the rest of the world really criticized him, if you remember, because in Europe they went into a recession, and they did just the opposite. They tried to get everybody, the pig countries, Portugal, Italy, Greece, Spain, basically in Ireland, they tried to get all those countries to be very austere, go down on their budget, stop spending money, and you know what happened? They had riots in the street. And so now Mr. Draghi, who's head of the European Common Union, he's opened the spigot, and they have a sugar diet going there, and he's lowered interest rates. In Japan, which has been in stagflation for years, they've opened the spigot again and said, come one, come all. And even in China, which was at 10% GDP, and it's true, it's down to 7.6% now, they've done a second stimulus plan. And it's very interesting. They announced today that the one-child program is over. You now can have 85,000 kids. Welcome, come one, come all. And they've also said, when you used to move in China from one area or one province to another, you needed a passport in order to do that, which were difficult to get. And now they've basically done away with that. So here's what we're trying to do, and people ask me all the time as an economist, how can you, Carole, keep leveraging and debt your way out of debt? How do you do that? And you know, I thought about that for a long time, and I think I've got it figured out to some degree. If all the world does it, and everybody just keeps doing the sugar, and keeps printing money, and keeps leveraging debt to get us out of debt, it'll go on for a while, because anything can go on for a while. Eventually, we'll hit the brick wall, but we'll all be dead, so who cares? You see what's going to happen? Somebody else is going to have to pick up the pen and basically deal with it, and that's the way it's going to be. So, Mr. Bernanke, let me talk about what happened here. We got down to 1.6%, if you remember, on the 10-year note. Now, why was that? Partially because of his third economic easing, but also because, if you remember, last year stocks were not in favor. Asia was down, Europe was down. We were just beginning to get our stock market back. So people ran into bonds and the 10-year note. So what happens when there's a great demand? When prices go up, interest rates go down. Now, what was interesting was from May to July, interest rates went from 1.6 to 2.3%. Now, see, that's not so much, but it's a lot in a short period of time. Now, why did that happen? Well, unfortunately, Mr. Bernanke came down to Congress to give his quarterly report, and the poor guy opens his mouth and says, you know, I think the United States economy is getting better. Well, you would have thought he said there was E. coli out there and everybody was going to die. And then he made it even worse by saying, and if it continues to get better, we at the Federal Reserve may, by the end of the year, start to make an accommodation, and maybe we won't be buying $85 billion of mortgage-backed securities every month. Oh, my God. The stock market went down 700 points in 1 week. The interest rates went up 2.3%. All of a sudden, they slapped him. He had to come back. He had to say, well, I don't think, maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's not quite as good as I thought. And then we've seen that basically the bond market go back down. And I think this is where you're going to be. I think the bond market is probably going to be between 2.7 and 3%, probably for the foreseeable future out. And let me tell you why I think that. Let's talk about who's coming in now to replace Mr. Bernanke. Well, it's very interesting because Mr. Obama, who's having a tough week, wouldn't you say, basically is going to ask for and wanted to ask for a gentleman named Larry Summers to come in. Now, Larry Summers, in case you don't know, was under the Clinton administration. He's an economist. He was the president of Harvard University. Very bright man. But you know, there's an old saying, and the old saying goes like this. If you can get up and talk and you know where you're going, fine. Then I guess you can open your mouth, and if people are willing to listen, good for you. When you're on script, never go off of script. If you're reading from a teleprompter, don't do that. Because when you do that, you're going to put your foot in the mouth, and you're going to be real sorry that you did that. So Mr. Summers, president of Harvard University, is making a speech at the School of Math and Science to all these PhDs and dignitaries that had come in. And he starts his speech by saying, you know, it's a very interesting thing, but when you look at who comes to the schools of math and science at Harvard, mostly it's men, and there's not very many women in these schools of education. Now, that would have been fine if Mr. Summers had followed that by saying, and I would like to encourage more women to come and join in the schools. Oh, no. What Mr. Summers said was, you know, I think I know the reason why that is. Men are so much better at math and science than women are. Now, I'm going to give you guys all here my best tidbit for today. See, guys are like this. You guys say something and 10 minutes later you forget. You know that. And you guys, when you're dealing with your significant others, you have what I call selective hearing, which means it goes in one ear and out the other, and you only retain that which you wish. But see, here's the difference between men and women. Women never, ever, ever forget. And you got to understand that, okay? Now, you see, you're married to a woman, and in 1999, one night, at 8:06 and 43 seconds, she's getting dressed to go to dinner or a party with you, and she says to you, do you think I look all right in this dress, or am I looking a little bit too chubby? And, you know, being a man, you don't think anything of it, and you say, well, it's all right. See, that's the wrong thing to say. You know that, of course, right? So now, come this Friday, today, you're going to go out to dinner. She's going to be dressed, and you're going to say something she doesn't like, and she's going to say, in 1999, at 8:06 and 43 seconds, you told me when I was in that black dress that you didn't think I looked so good, and she will remember. There's the difference. So Mr. Obama puts Mr. Summers' name into nomination. Now, see, he had to resign as the president of Harvard because of that statement, but he goes under the radar, and he thinks 4 years, I'll keep quiet, life is good, I'm going to get this job. He has been basically promoting himself to get it forever. Well, what do you think happened? The women in Congress write Mr. Obama a 2-line letter, and the 2-line letter says, never send him up here. Number one, he will not get nominated. Number two, he will not be able to walk vertically out of this hole. So Mr. Summers did what all gentlemen do. He said, I never wanted this job anyway. Yeah, like why? Okay. So you know who's coming in now. She was up yesterday and did very well at Congress. Janet Yellen, who was basically the Federal Reserve Chairman of San Francisco. She taught at Berkeley. She has a PhD in economy. She basically is also married to a Nobel Prize laureate. Her son teaches basically English economy in England. Now, here's what's really good about her. When you work for the Federal Reserve, they usually term you either as a hawk or a dove. Now, if you're a hawk, you're very concerned about basically the value of the dollar, and you're very concerned about inflation. So you like interest rates to be higher. If you're a dove, you're much more concerned with the growth of the economy and unemployment numbers. And she tends to be pretty much on the dove side. So that's why I think that you're probably not going to see any interest rates hikes, except for what the world's going to allow it to basically vacillate between that 2.7% and 3% until probably the third quarter even of maybe next year. Now, that's good for all of you because we would like interest rates to stay low because we just have an economy beginning to rebound, a housing market beginning to rebound, a stock market beginning to rebound, and that is a good thing. So I think when you look nationally, that's sort of where we are. Now, let me talk about the San Francisco Bay Area because we moved to a different drummer. You know that. It's like apples and oranges. And you know when I tell you this, that this is absolutely amazing. If we were a country, we would be the 8th largest economy in the world. And the San Francisco Bay Area just by itself would be number 22 among all the countries of the world. So California and the San Francisco Bay Area is a very powerful force. It's projected by the year 2040 that we will have 2.1 million more people come into this San Francisco Bay Area, and it's going to create 1.1 million more jobs. Now, let's talk a little bit about where we are. San Francisco now has about 5.3% unemployment. San Mateo about the same. You're a little bit higher down here, probably in the 6-7%. When you go over to Alameda and Costa, they're probably at 7 or 8, but then they were high up in the double digits. So that's number one. Number two is, I think when you look at the San Francisco Bay Area, you have to begin to start to look at us a little bit differently. You know, Kay Schiller comes out, and everybody thinks that's the gospel of real estate, and we're the hottest market in the nation right now. They say we're up 24% year to date, and I think that's lovely. And they compare us with all these 20 cities around the world. But you know what? I think that they do that, but they should be comparing us not to national cities, but it should be international cities, because San Francisco is really an international site. That means that basically our real estate is going to be more valuable than if you compare us to Houston, and then they compare us to Detroit. Can you believe that? And places like that. So at the end of the day, let's just talk about it. San Francisco now, the median price there, 1.3 million. Average days on the market, 32. Square footage price, $665 per square foot. Now, I think here's how you have to think about it. If San Francisco is an international city, think of a wheel with the hub and all the spokes that go out from it, because then now we're talking the San Francisco Bay Area. Here's the characteristics of an international city. Number one is you have to be one of the most visited places on the planet, and we're always in the top 10 of places people want to visit. You have to have cultural diversity. I'm sure in this room there's 30 languages that are being spoken. You must have employment diversity. We certainly have that. You must have institutions, at least 2, of learning, research, and education that basically are world-renowned. And do you know there was an article in the Wall Street Journal this week that talked about how many international students we have here now? Over 528,000, of which, guess what? The majority are located in California. And where do you think they are? Stanford, Cal, and the University of Southern California. So we know that they want to come here, and those are world-renowned. Geographically, you have to be based where people want to live, and certainly our weather and everything that we have here, and the fact that we're 3 or 4 hours from the sun and the beach and the snow, etc., makes us very desirable. But you must have 2 other things. One is you must be the gateway to emerging economies, and we are the gateway to the Pacific Rim. And remember that, because those are certainly emerging very, very, very viable economies. And the second thing is we have something here called Silicon Valley. Now, let me talk a little bit about Silicon Valley, because I think that is where you're going to have the wealth that's going to be created that's going to fuel your real estate market here. First of all, let me give you some September results and October results. Basically, they told us that on October and September, sales went up but slightly, but we're still down from the peak. We now are at about 585,000 as the median price across the San Francisco Bay Area. Do you know during this downturn we were as low as 290,000? The peak was 665,000, so we're within about 10% of where we were at the peak. That's all well and good, but here's the good stuff. Foreclosures now only make up about 3.6% of the market across the Bay Area. At one time, that number was as high as 50%. Short sales now are about 8.6% of the market. At one time, they were as high as 27%. But here's the 2 best things that you have to understand. Absentee buyers are still making up about 22% of our market. Now, who is that? That's going to be international buyers, investors, REITs, big hedge funds, and then some people that are basically traditional kind of first-time buyers, etc. And all cash was still 24% of every deal that was done last month in the San Francisco Bay Area. Now, that's important, because I think those trends, absentee buyers and all cash buyers, are going to continue. So all of us know the first time move up, move around buyer, and you're going to continue to have that. But let's talk about what's happening in Silicon Valley so you'll understand what's going to be really coming at you over the next 3 to 5 years. First of all, Silicon Valley, everybody, and I just got a call from the Wall Street Journal and said, well, it's bubbling out there again, Carole, and isn't it going to happen what happened in the year 2000? No, I don't think so, and I think I can tell you why. Let's go back to the year 2000, and if you remember, there were all these brand new companies, right, that were basically getting a lot of money from VC and venture guys, and they were throwing it in the door, and it was rotating out just as fast, because number one, They thought they had a good idea, but they didn't know how to monetize it, make a profit, and everybody that wanted to use it wasn't willing to pay for it. People began to like the internet, but nobody wanted to pay anything to use it. Well, you had inexperienced leadership, young people, and you didn't have any big mamas and papas that were there sitting at the top of this group that could manage them, buy them, acquire them, and basically help them get through their hard moments. That was 2000. So everybody threw everything against the wall, and some stayed, but a lot of them went away. Now, in the next 15 years, we have fast forward to 50 years in technology, which has created tremendous wealth potential because we have accelerated the pace enormously. So now who do you have down there? Well, first you have the mamas and the papas, because you have Apple and Google and Facebook and LinkedIn and Yahoo and Salesforce.com. So you now have the mamas and the papas that can help all these baby incubator companies that are coming along. The second thing is those companies by themselves have about $500 billion sitting in cash. Now that means they can do anything they want. They can merge, they can buy back stock, they can issue dividends, they can buy companies, they can create products, they can develop applications, they can bring the best people in and the best minds in. That's very important. They're established now. Most of those companies are profitable. They have great leadership at the top. So it's very different than the year 2000. Here's what really makes the difference now too. You still have all the baby incubator companies there, but guess what? Those companies, the Apples, the Googles, the Facebooks, are buying 5 to 10 of them a week, not a year, not every 5 years, but a week. And what happens when they buy out those companies? Well, let's talk about an example. Let's talk about Yahoo that just bought a company called Tumblr. Now, what is Tumblr? Tumblr is a tween-age site, all right, for people from 12 to 18. So if you go on it, be careful because you will not believe what they're doing, okay? I didn't even understand half of what they're doing, and I thought I would like to try some of it. So I'm ready and I'm willing, but I can't find anybody in my age group either that's able to do any of the things that they suggested. So at the end of the day, here's what it's about. This company made $10 million in revenue, and she goes out, Melissa Meyer from Yahoo, and pays $1.1 billion for this company. Now that doesn't correlate. So why did she do it? Because 2 million teenagers every month go on that site, growing at 40%. She wanted the application and the eyeballs, because she can't get 2 million people to go on Yahoo. They think Yahoo is old stuff. They don't want to be on that. They want to be on this tween site, okay? So at the end of the day, that's what she did. Now, what does that mean for you, and how's the correlation? Because the 90 people that work there, the founder, who's 26 years old and a high school dropout, gets $250 million day one, and the other 89 people share in the $1.1 billion. That's what's important to you, because what do you think they do when they get that money? The first thing they do is they go out and they buy houses and cars and all the things that they want. Now let's compound that and let's talk about Twitter. Twitter is a company that's been in business for 6 years. They have never made a profit, ever. And in fact, last quarter, they lost $68 million, the most in any quarter. And yet, here's a company that goes public, goes up 78% the first day, has moderated back a little, but is worth $31 billion. Now, what do you think is going to happen with all that money that comes in? Some of it they'll keep in the company, but some of it are people who've been waiting 6 years to get their options and their bonuses and their warrants, and they're going to go out and they're going to spend money. Amazon.com has never been a profitable company. Did you know that? That surprises people. They could be profitable, but he wants to expand. And do you know what he's doing? He's not only taking everybody online, he's taking every retailer that has a brick and mortar store. He's in the grocery business now. He's starting to do Sunday deliveries. He's in books and every other thing that you might possibly want to buy and sell. So just think about it now. We have developed an industry where you don't even have to be profitable to be valuable. Now just think about that, because the potential for what you can bring to the world and what people want to do with it basically drives the growth of that industry. That's absolutely amazing. Did you know that there's something out there called Snapshot? And that's a brand new company now that Google offered $3 billion to them, okay? They've never made any money either. And you know what it is? It's an online service where kids can go in, put their photos and their telephone messages, and they're deleted in 10 seconds. And that's why they like them, because these kids want to share these, you know, kind of gray area photos and all the stuff that they're saying, but they don't want it brought back up on the internet, you know, a year later. And Google offered them $3 billion, and they said, shove it, we'll just stay by ourselves. So at the end of the day, what I'm trying to tell you is there going to be enough money in Silicon Valley to continue fueling this market? Yes, there will be. Now, let me talk about something else. There are a group out there, and see, they're all young. So let's talk about who's coming at you and what you need to know. Let me talk about the low end of the market first, all right? Because I think there's going to be a big change in the low end of the market. We're very used to first-time buyers going in there, and you will continue to have that. But here's what's coming at you now in big numbers. It's going to be the international investors. Let me talk a little bit about China and what China is beginning to do. There was an article in the Wall Street Journal last week about how China, just this year, has spent $1.6 billion in the San Francisco Bay Area buying properties, both residential and commercial. It's projected that next year they're going to spend $4.6 billion buying properties, and here's the difference. The Chinese have always liked to buy what we call trophy properties. They love to buy Pebble Beach and the big name properties. Well, guess what now? They're getting into foreclosures and short sales. And when you see that they are a trust, an LLC, or a partnership, the Chinese government now is behind that movement. So it's not just individual investors that are pushing money through Singapore or Hong Kong. It's basically the Chinese government now that's beginning to invest in the United States of America. And guess where they're doing it? In California and in New York. So that's going to fuel part of your basically lower end market big time, because they're getting into residential real estate in the hundreds of pieces at a time. You have hedge funds now that are in the business. Goldman Sachs now owns 37,000 homes across the United States in a fund that they have created. Now, here's what they're going to do. You want to know how to get to them? Go to property managers, because that's who's going to manage their business, all right? They buy these homes. The bad ones, they basically cosmetically redo and they spin them off. The good ones, they're going to keep for 3 years, and then they're going to take the appreciation, spin them out, and sell them. So you got the big guys on Wall Street now that are in the low end. And then you have these REITs that are all being set up, these public companies where they're getting into the rental business, or we're buying houses, we'll rent them for a while, and then we're basically going to give our people the return from the rents, and that's it. So I think that's a whole new pocket that's been there in small numbers, but you're going to see them now take a big number for you, basically as part of your new client base. Now, let's talk about people that are coming at you. Well, the biggest group, according to NAR, are what we call echo boomers. Those are the 35 to 45-year-olds, the children of the baby boomers. So you've still got some baby boomers. People my age, we're dying, so forget about us. But baby boomers, you've got still out there doing some things. But the echo boomers are still pretty dominant. They're number one. But guess what's coming behind them? There's a group called millennials, and that group is 25 to 35-year-olds. And let me just give you the numbers. Last year, they were the second largest buyers of residential real estate in the United States at 28%. It's projected by American Express and NAR that within the next 5 years, they will make up number one and become 37% of your market. Now, let's talk about these millennials, because they're an interesting group of people. They're 25 to 35-year-olds. They have money. Average salary in Silicon Valley is $175,000. If they can't afford to live in the high-end areas like San Francisco, etc., they can go to Daly City, they can go to Vallejo, they can go to Richmond, they can go to San Ramon. They have the spokes of the wheels here, where you may not like to live there, but there are places where they can go. They're collectors. They are willing to pay a premium for the things they want, and they will not buy what they don't like and what they don't want. They move in herds, but the herds they move in are their friends, not family. They live on communication and tweetering, and they absolutely live with all these appliances. And if you took them away from them, they would all stutter. That's it, because they can't talk without the appliances. Now, here's what else we know about them. Their lifestyle is very different than ours. They don't follow the similar pattern. You're used to people that start at the low end, move up, and then move to the high end. Not these kids. These kids start in an apartment, right? And then they go right up to the highest price point they can afford once they decide they want a house. They will go from an $1,800 a month apartment all the way up to a $2 million house and think nothing of it, because they skip everything in between. We also know that here's what they tell you, and there was an article in San Francisco, because you know in San Francisco they have a supply-demand issue. They've only done about 1,500 new units a year there, and they've needed about 5,000. Now, there is some new building going on there, but basically, they're even looking at the Ellis Act there, which allowed people to take over properties and make people move out, and then you could sell them. And they're trying to change that law there now that you have to own a property 5 years. And if you sell it before 5 years are up, you have to go back to the old tenants and allow them to move back in at the old rent. So you can imagine what that's going to do because they're so concerned with housing. But the new thing up there is what they call these very micro little apartments. They're 200 to 400 square feet. And what's interesting about them is what these young people say. The apartment becomes my bedroom. It's where I go for my solitary time, where I go at night to wind down. My neighborhood, where I live on the street, is my living room and dining room. That's where I go to get all my energy, to meet my friends, to shop, to look around, to bicycle, to get my activity, to get all my venues and events and all of the excitement in my life. So here's what I think we have to understand. One, they're a very different client than you're used to, all right, because they want that kind of a lifestyle. The second thing is the communities that are going to exceed and the values that are going to appreciate the most are the neighborhoods that offer that to this group. So here's the word you have to think of. Funky is a great word. They love funky. Different, eclectic, diverse, a lot of multi of everything. They love eclectic, very different, sort of edgy, very edgy. Trendy is good, very good. Now, let me try to give you some examples, all right? Mark Zuckerberg, last year, bought a home in Palo Alto. He paid about $4 million for it, all right? And that doesn't give him prime Palo Alto, but it was a nice house. Now, a month ago, the houses on either side of him went up for sale, okay? And they used his name in marketing it, and he did not like that. So he went to 2 houses on either side of him. Are you listening to me? So now that's 4 houses. They were each listed at the 2 houses at $6 million. He went to 4 houses now and rang the doorbell, actually himself, and said to them, I will give you $10 million for your house. I don't like the fact that they used my name, and I'm not going to make you even move out. I'm going to rent them back to you, but I just don't want people using me as an example. Number one, do you understand what I'm saying? They will do that and spend the money, and they don't care. In the meantime, his wife comes to San Francisco with a group of friends, and they're twittering at every house they're going to. And the agents that were working with her did what I probably would have done. They took her to a place called Billionaires Row in San Francisco, which is Pacific Broadway, and where Larry Ellerson has a house, and Mr. Getty and Danielle Steele, the authoress. She hated it. She absolutely hated that area. She thought it was overdone, it was arrogant, it was dated. Views are beautiful, but she didn't like it. Do you know where she ended up buying a house? So what are the hot areas in San Francisco? Noe Valley, the Castro, the Intermission, south of Market, the edges of Pacific Heights, okay? She buys at Mission Dolores at a place called Liberty Park, 2 blocks from the Intermission. 2 blocks from the Intermission. Pays $10 million for a house there, goes down to the city, gets another $3 million to redo it, and here's what happened. Within 1 week, 5 other tech guys bought houses in Liberty Park, sight unseen, and she raised the value of real estate there by at least 20%. Just because he and her are going to basically move there, it becomes very trendy. What did she like about it? Do you know what she liked about the Intermission? It's eclectic, it's funky, it's edgy. What do you see there? You've got from her and all the techies that are there, and then you got the Hells Angels, the prostitutes, the tattoo artists, the drug dealers. You got Spanish Harlem, 85,000 different restaurants, nightlights going on day and night, pubs instead of bars, all kinds of open air fairs and theaters and concerts and street people, and they love that. So you know the communities now that basically are going to get the picture, and you know that's why you got a Santana Row down here, and you've got certain things and some other environments, they're just not going to appeal to this young group, all right? Now, the same thing is true in San Francisco. You go out to St. Francis Woods there, which is a beautiful area, you can't sell a home there. These people don't want to live there. It's cold, it's foggy. They don't want to be in West Portal. I live in a place called San Mateo, California. Does anybody live in San Mateo? Oh, good, only me, then I can say this. Thank you. Oh, you live in San Mateo? Sorry about this. I apologize in advance. Don't take it personally. First of all, the council there for years has been trying to redo San Mateo, right? And so they asked for suggestions. So I told them they should make it a cemetery, the main street. And the reason that I said that was half the people there can't walk anyway, so that way when somebody dies, you can very closely be close to our loved ones and visit. It makes sense to me. So at the end of the day, here's what happens in San Mateo. It should have been the heart of the beginning of the peninsula. It should have been. It's like Oakland should have been the heart of the East Bay, but they never got it together, okay? When you start on 4th Avenue in San Mateo, the first thing you see are these sleep train mattress stores, okay? That's great. Going out at the other end, you got 2 more sleep train mattress stores. Now, how many mattresses do you buy in your life, okay? Then in between that, you got 4 furniture stores that go in and out of business every 4 months. So they're not rentals, they're money laundering places. I know that's what they are. With the people standing on the corner waving those balloons saying sale today, furniture sale, everything must go. And then in between, you got all these restaurants nobody wants to eat at, believe me, and all these dime stores that basically like trinkets at the airport. So at the end of the day, the biggest name brand in San Mateo, California is Noah's Bagel. That's it. If you want anything else, you're out of luck. You go 7 minutes up to Burlingame, California. Burlingame, California, right? Oh, you got Ralph Lauren, you got Apple, you got The Gap, you got Williams-Sonoma, you got Restoration Hardware, you got all kinds of things up there, all right? They just built a beautiful new Safeway up there, and underneath that, you got 9 million different kinds of environments. There's the difference. That's the kind of environment that you need. Now, if you still don't believe me, let me tell you what's going to happen at Facebook. Facebook, you know, bought the Menlo space, basically, where Sun Microsystem was, and they're redoing it. They are now doing something called Facebook Town. Now, let me tell you what the concept is, and when you hear it, this is going to blow your mind. If you remember, and some of you may, but most of you are too young to remember, there was something called Levittown back east. And Levittown was an environment where a company that had a big environment, office space, or plant with lots of acreage, Levitt basically built housing for their people on the same environment within the office complex, so that people could work and live within the same environment. Well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Mr. Facebook has decided to do that in Menlo Park. So they are building a 394 rental apartment community on their office site for $120 million called Anton Menlo. Now, you're going to all say, oh, my God, competition. It's not competition. The 25-year-olds are going to go there and rent there. And the minute they have kids or the minute they make money, they're going to get the hell out of there, believe me, and buy houses. Now, how do I know that? Because let's look at rents. Do you know what rents are now? San Francisco, $3,300 for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath location. In San Jose, California, you're at about $2,200. And Oakland, $2,100, if you can believe that. But here's the worst part. Occupancy rates. 96 to 98% occupancy now in those 3 areas, which means we have nothing. That's why they're doing this. But let me tell you the amenities so you will understand what you're going to need to offer these people and how you have to talk to them. First of all, they're going to have what they call all these on-site cafes. So they're going to have like 14 or 15 different kinds of restaurants and trucks that come in and offer them everything from here you can take it to go to basically the high end. Then they're going to have all the convenience stores, so the grocery stores and the barber shop and basically where you get your nails done and your hair done and the cleaners and all of that stuff. Then they're going to have basically all of the on-site sports pubs and theme pubs. These people don't like bars. They like themed event pubs. That's what they like. All right. There's going to be a bicycle repair shop with on-site storage. Now, why is that important for you to realize? Because these young people don't like to use cars the way we use them, all right? They love to be in bicycles. And if you go to San Francisco, and I didn't realize this until my grandchildren one Sunday were driving around, and they keep counting these Mini Coopers, right? And I say, what the hell are you doing? Well, we have a contest to see which one of us can get the most Mini Coopers. And then it hit me. The Mini Cooper in San Francisco is the automated bicycle. They use it because if you don't want to use your own physical energy, you get a Mini Cooper, you zoop around, you can park almost any place, basically, and in the city for an hour, it costs you, you get 8 minutes for 25 cents. So you can imagine how expensive it is. So at the end of the day, they like bicycles and Mini Coopers. Now, do they have cars? Yes, they do. When they come here and they have children, of course they're going to get the SUVs. But they have cars even in the city, but they spend $800 a month to park what I call the toy cars. so that people know they're wealthy. That's going to be a Tesla, a BMW, the Mercedes, and they bring them out once a week so people know they can afford it. But they really live in bicycles and Mini Coopers. They're also going to have a spiritual and physical wellness center, so they can fix your mind as well as your body, okay? And they're going to have yoga instructors, personal trainers, and a facility that's probably 25,000 square feet. Then on the top of the roof, there's going to be 3 themed areas. So one is for live concerts and musics and shows. The other one is for ballet, symphony, and theater, and educational events. And the third one is going to be a venue events one, where they will bring in, for example, all the wineries one day, and people can go to wine tasting. They'll bring in master chefs, and people can go and have a cookout, all right? Now it gets better. There's a pet spa and a pet center there. Now, see, there's going to be a daycare center, but that wasn't even mentioned in the article, because these young people don't have children yet. Their pets are their children. Now, listen to this, because this is where I want to live. I want to live in the pet center, and I'm going to tell you why. First of all, it's about 12,000 square feet, and the first thing is your dog and cat needs to go for an interview, all right? Not whether they'll take them or not, because they'll take them, and I'm going to tell you the charges. It's $2,000 to $8,000 a month for your pet. Now, just wait till I tell you what they're going to do for these animals. The reason the interview is they want to make sure that they have analyzed your animal as to nutrition, physical therapy, and psychology, right? So when you walk in, and you think I'm kidding, I am not kidding. I have an article from the Wall Street Journal. I can give you the date of it. It's July. Look it up. It's Facebook Town. At the end of the day, here's what happens. A woman at the desk or a man, when you walk in, says, how are you this morning, and how is your pet? So I have a little pet named Riley. How's Riley today? How do I know? He's a dog. He's good or he's bad? I don't know. Okay, but they want to know, is he happy? Is he depressed? Is he having a bad day? The first place Riley will go is Riley will go into the nutrition center, which is where a nutritionist now has developed a diet for Riley. So Riley gets breakfast, but it's going to be developed by a nutritionist. After that, Riley goes into the viewing center, which is where, and I don't know if you knew this, but on cable TV, they have a cable station only devoted to dogs and cats. Believe me, people are shaking their head that know that. And so that's where they'll go, because human TV makes animals nervous. After that, they will go into what is called physical therapy with a therapist there. So if Riley has arthritis, they'll work him specially. That costs you more. Otherwise, he can play on the trampoline and have a nice time. After that, the Riley goes into downtime, which is rest period, okay? So now Riley is going in. You can have it separate and basically all by yourself, or you can have it where they mingle. After that, they have to have social networking, so they go into social hour where they all play with the other dogs. And the last half of the day, there's grooming. There's dog walking if you want that, and there's basically physical, again, therapy and psychological therapy. So if you have a dog that bites or a dog that basically scratches itself, they have a psychologist there that will work with your dog and retrain it, all right? I am not kidding you, and it is lined up like ever. Let me give you another example. I saw a sign coming down here on a freeway about the American Girl store that just opened at Stanford. Do you all know what American Girl is? Oh, yeah, all the young fathers here know, and women know. Years ago, I used to do a lot of traveling, and I was in New York. And when I was in New York, my daughter was about 6 or 7 years old, and they have an American Girl School in North. They don't have one here. They did at that time, because she's 35 now. And of course, she said to me, Mom, when you go to New York, can you go into the American Girl store and bring me a present home? So stupid me, I go into the American Girl store thinking this is no big deal. At the time, they only had like 4 dolls, and there was one there called Samantha, and I liked Samantha a lot. She's, look, everybody's shaking their head. And so I'm absolutely astonished. My daughter's 35. The Samantha doll was like $250 at that time, and she was 6. And of course, before you get out of there, they sell you the trunk and the bed and the table and the china and the silver and everything else. I got out of there. It must have cost me like $1,000, which is probably like $8,000 now. When I called my husband and told him, he said to me, have you lost your mind? We will never be able to pay this off. This is like a house. Okay, fine. So fast forward to today, and they just opened one in Stanford. Now, let me just tell you what happened to me with this one. So now I have a granddaughter who happens to be 6 or 7 years old, and of course she calls me up, Nana, for my Christmas present, could you take me to the American Girl store? Now, what am I going to say? No to my granddaughter? Of course not. You know, you want your grandchildren to think you're perfect. All right. So I said, sure, we'll go down there. So I say to my daughter, call up, find out the hours. We'll make a date, and I'll go down. So my daughter calls me back, and she says, you're not going to believe this. She said, I called down there, and she said the first thing that they said to me is, would your mother with her granddaughter like to have a public or private viewing of the American Girl dolls? I said, excuse me, to my daughter. She said, well, Mom, what do you want to do? I said, of course I'm going to have a private viewing. Of course. What else am I going to do? I don't know. So then you can either have lunch or tea, and they bring in a sales consultant to basically show you the whole line of American Girl dolls, and all of the equipment that goes with it. So I'm wrapped up now into a tea. Now wait. So I said to my daughter, okay, I'll bring a barrel full of cash down. I'll mortgage the house. You can imagine that. And I said, when can we go? Let's go during the holiday because I could be off a couple of days. Oh, she calls back and says to me, no way. They are booked solid. From when she called last week, the first date we could get was January the 4th at 4 o'clock. They are booked solid every hour of every single day. Now, the average price of an American Girl, if you go in that store, is probably close to $1,500 to $2,000 before you walk out the door on a doll for a kid, right? So if you don't think there's enough money in this valley to fuel your appreciation in real estate, you now know where it's coming from. And here's the difference. And everybody says to me, but Carole, when they're 60, won't they be out of money? No, and I'm going to tell you why, and here's the difference. When I was young, we had to work to make a dollar, right? You had to use your own physical toil to do it. Okay, then you wanted to make $2, and you said to yourself, my God, I can spend $150 to support my family, but I got to save 50% because if I don't, when I'm 60, we won't have any money, right? Okay, now let's fast forward to today. Those kids are making $150,000, $175,000. Sometimes there's two of them working in a house. They have enough money to pay their expenses. All of a sudden, their company gets bought out. They get a bonus. Their options come due. They get warrants. Now, all of a sudden, you're 26 years old, and somebody gives you $1 million. Boom, like that. 2 million, 10 million, 250 million. You're going to keep working. You'll spend your income to support yourself. But do you realize now what you have? You have a pocket of wealth that can start to work for you. And if you're not just a complete idiot and you put that to work for you, do you realize when you're 60 what you'll have? You'll never be poor. They don't need Social Security because they won't need it. Now, there's going to be half of the world that isn't going to have that. That's the struggling ones. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about in this valley, the 27 to 30% that you have that are going to have the money. Now, we can be very altruistic and care about those people, but these are your customers, and that's what's coming at you. So now, let me talk for a minute about the real estate market. I think you had a very volatile, very powerful, very much multi-offer, no supply, basically lots of demand, low interest rates, everybody scrambling kind of market at the beginning of the year, okay? Now, they called me from the Wall Street Journal, and they said to me, what's happening out there, Carole, now? Well, they don't understand when you talk real estate, so I had to give them a graphic, all right? And the graphic is, I said, you know, I compare San Francisco real estate to the weather. And here's what I think about it. We started the year going into the spring, and it bloomed and blossomed, and we were in full flower. Now we're going from fall into winter, and I think the market has cooled a bit. But I don't think it ever gets cold in San Francisco. So I think we've cooled down a bit, which is a good thing because we needed that. And I think we'll come back into the spring next year and we'll have another burst. So that's number one. As far as appreciation, here's what I think. I think the low end will continue to appreciate very well because you have all these big entities that are coming in. And for them, it's just a return on their investment. And they're going to the banks and buying 300 and 400 at a time. So they get them for pennies on the dollar anyway. The bank wants them off their books, okay? The second thing is I think you have the middle tier, and you know what that is by your price point that you work. I think that's basically gotten its appreciation for this year. I think it's stabilizing, okay? I think it will have another burst maybe next year, but I think for right now it's stabilizing, so you may actually be able to do some negotiating. I think you have pockets that are still going to be multi-offer, those trendy, funky areas, you know where they are, the Palo Altos of the world and the Cupertinos, et cetera, et cetera. There people are going to come in. You're going to still have multi-offers. They're still going to be willing to go 20% over wherever it is the market is, not the list price. And then I think you're going to have the border to the trendy, edgy towns. Those are the ones that may have one or two basically multiple offers, but less than you've had before, and people will be willing to pay a premium over market, but maybe only 5% less than they would if it was a real trendy area. And then I like to divide the high end into two categories. The high end, which is the Atherton kinds of areas where they buy what they want, they spend what they want. But anything down here, probably when you're looking at from probably 1.5 to 5 million, that's probably the beginning of the high end of most of your areas around here. I think that's the most vulnerable to see some changes over this last half of the year. You're actually going to see some things basically adjust in price maybe and even stay on the market a little bit longer. So get prepared for that. Now, what does that mean with buyers and sellers? Well, I think with buyers, they have to understand affordability. They really do, guys. They have to know where they're going, whether that's going to buy what they can get in, or they have to start lower because it's going to be a multi-offer area. Because they all want to be in the trendy areas, but the trendy areas are still going to have multi-offer, even though you're going to begin to read in the paper, the market is cooling down. I know you're going to start to read that. It doesn't matter. It matters where you're going to be. They need to understand the difference between list, market, and premium price. Now, what do I mean by that? Every one of you could take me out today and show me every piece of property within a 20-mile radius, and it's listed, and I don't know what the hell that means, and neither do you. Because at the end of the day, a list price is just a price somebody put on it. That's all it is. It can be done to get multiple offers. It can be at market. It can be over market. They can be testing the market. We can be playing the market. It could be a developer who's going to give you something on the back end. So at the end of the day, it doesn't mean anything. But the buyers think that's important. That's where you start. No, where you have to get them is to market pricing. Now, I'll give you an example. I'm in an office and a woman says this house was $1.1 million, and her clients went up to $1.4 million and they didn't get it. And they were furious. And she said, what should I have done? I said, well, the first question you should have done was ask yourself, was that the market price? She said, no, the market was 1.3. Then I said, you needed to tell your buyers, this is just a list price to get us to market, to get more people to make offers on this property. Now we need to go to 1.3. She said, but Carole, I don't think they would have started at 1.3 if it's listed at 1.1. I said, that's a simple conversation. What you tell them is, look, this is the market. I can show you things that prove that. Here's what you've done to yourself. You're basically never going to get this property. You're going to wait for the next one, and then you and 12 other people are going to be running because only one person got it. You're going to be way above 1.3 anyway. Now you're chasing even a higher price point, and you didn't get the house. So you either get in and play the game here the way it's played, or we go look someplace else. So instead of Palo Alto, we'll go to East Palo Alto. There, 1.1 by Shell. I mean, what the hell can I tell you? That's the way it is, all right? That's the market. That's life. So at the end of the day, you have to get them to market. Then if it's multi-offers, it's against the bidders. And is it 1%, 3%, 5%? You watch what's being done, and you understand that. And they need to understand that laddering. List price, market, yes. Premium now, and how high do we want to go? If they don't want to do that, then get out of the market now. Let's go look someplace else, because I can't get you this house. There's no way in hell we're going to be able to do that. And that's very important. Now, if they can negotiate and they're in a market that's stabilized, you go back to the old way of doing real estate, and that's fine. Now, what about sellers? Well, sellers are very interesting, because I think sellers, they're very much into listing, and they're going to say, well, my house is still 15% under, and blah, 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 blah. Okay, let's talk about it. First of all, I don't think you list property. That's not what you do for a living. I think the first thing you should say to a seller when you walk in the door after you give them the market and introduce yourself and all that, you should say to them, I'm really not here to list your property. I'm here to help you sell your property. There's a big difference in mentality between listing and selling. And you've got to get them in the sell mode, because that gets them into the buying. And who's buying? It's a buyer. And it only matters what a buyer is willing to put on a table, not what they're willing to list their property at. The second thing I like to talk to them about is days on the market. Because days on the market, and how long would you like to be on the market? Because we can be quick, we can be fast, or we can sit here for the next 800 days and basically get all the hits of the market. The third thing I think you need to tell them is that they have a dream market right now. They're almost back to where they were when things were down. They have ready, willing, and able buyers, AAA, like a AAA bond, and basically low interest rates. And you know what? They're not competing against every house on the block. Wait till 4 more come up for basically sale. And they have a dream market. And they all tell you, if I could have low interest rates, buyers who can afford to pay cash, willing to pay even over above my list price, basically, and you could tell me that I'm not competing against other houses on the market, and boy, that's my market. Okay, so why are we not putting our house up for sale? Well, because I'm waiting. What are you waiting for? For it to get better. How can it get better? It's there. You're done. Now it's only going to go from here to someplace else, because here's what's going to happen. Inventory will grow, not glut, but grow. Interest rates are going to go up. All those AAA buyers, some of them will have gone away. You'll have more coming, but some of them will have gone away, and maybe then, oh, let's talk about lending. That's important, because I'm going to tell you, if you have to have a buyer that needs a loan, you're going to be in trouble this year. Let me tell you why. First of all, let me tell you what's happening starting January 1 with ARMs, all right? And a lot of people get ARMs out here. There is something now called qualified and non-qualified loans. If you're a lender and you do a non-qualified loan, you can give a loan to anybody you want. They don't care, Fannie and Freddie or any private investor, because you're going to keep it on your books, and there's not going to be any basically liability on them. It'll all be on you. If you want to do a qualified loan, listen to this. The qualified loan now has to do the following. Expense ratios, which are at 50-55% on FHA, are going down to 43%. Number two is the bank has to verify in writing and basically guarantee to whoever they sell that loan to that the borrower could pay the mortgage payment, not at the beginning interest rate, but at the fully indexed rate, which is at the end rate plus 2%. So you start out at 2%, it goes to 5%, you got to be able to make that payment at 7%, and people take ARMs because they can't make it at 7%. Also, the banks, with all their points and fees and everybody, the appraisers, the brokers, everybody, can't charge more than 3%, which means they're not going to be doing ARMs anymore. So they're going to be back to 30-year fix. That's number one. Number two, they're going to change Fannie and Freddie, at least in the next year or two. And let me tell you what's going to happen with that. They're looking at two plans. Even though we've given them $185 billion and they paid us back, the government doesn't want the risk. So one plan is, let's get out of the business. I don't think that's going to fly. The other plan is a hybrid, which is, okay, we'll put them back on the public markets, we'll make them a public company, but we're going to set up a government entity like the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. Every time a lender makes a loan and they give it to Fannie and Freddie, they pay a fee, and that'll funnel the basically guarantees. But here's the things you know about. Right now, it's 417 all the way up to 625 on high-end areas. They're going to lower the 417 to 400,000, but they're going to reduce the high cap from 625 to 500,000. They also are going to say they only want it to be for first-time home buyers and low-income people. So let's say I have a $417,000 loan, and Citibank or Bank of America could give it to Fannie and Freddie. But they're going to look at my income now, too, and they're going to say no, because she makes too much money. We're not taking her 417. You keep it on your books or find somebody else to buy it. The third thing is they do now 80%, 8 out of every 10 loans. They want to bring that number down to 50%. So at the end of the day, those changes are coming. In other words, 80-10-10s are coming back. There's more variety in loans, but the rules and regulations from Dodd-Frank and the Bureau of Financial Protection are beginning to come down the pipe this next year. And so you need to understand that. So Mr. Seller, quit being an idiot. Get in line here. You got an all-cash buyer. Don't be so greedy. The other thing is, let them understand what happens, and this is what happens. When you buy a house, let's say you bought one in 2002 and you paid 7% interest, 25% down, 30-year fixed. Your payment's about $4,000 a month, and every time you make that payment to the bank, 9% pays down your loan, say it's $600,000. All the rest goes to interest. You don't want to be at 7%, Mr. Seller. Get out of that world. Get into the 4.5% world, because here's the difference. Your payment at 4.5% is $1,000 less, and when you make that mortgage payment, 27% pays down the loan. You're building wealth, and then the rest goes to interest. So you're doing yourself a favor by paying less interest on your loan, because you're giving that money to yourself instead of to the bank. That's very important, and they never think of that on an ongoing basis. All right, so I got to close now. I can see in the back they're saying, get the hell off, Carole. Okay, so at the end of the day, what I can say is this. I think you have a very desirable asset called real estate. Now, how do you know that? You don't fight Goldman Sachs, guys. Don't start to fight Wall Street. Don't do that. They think it's a great asset, or they wouldn't own 37,000 homes across the United States of America. The Chinese want to be here. They're not stupid people. They're very, very bright people. They want to bring our money back so that we can send it back. They know what they're doing, and it seems like they like the San Francisco Bay Area. I think you're going to have a great real estate market, but I think real estate, who your clients are, how you're going to do business, what they want out of the communities they're going to live in over the next decade is going to change drastically. So you either get with the program or you're not with the program, and that's the way it is. Stay focused, work hard. You're going to have a good real estate year. Be optimistic. The media is going to start to tell you the market's cooling down. They're going to say, oh, it's this, it's that, it's flat. Look, at the end of the day, we are very well prepared and very well positioned in the San Francisco Bay Area. Thank you and happy holidays.
You know, I only heard one in your whole presentation, and that was in my introduction. Take a breath. Wow, what a wealth of information that spews from you. You've got it there, and we appreciate you coming to visit us at least once a year, but sometimes twice when we have the convention. We have a photo opportunity, and then I have a question for you.
Okay. Oh, nice. Thank you.
A little recognition of you.
Isn't it nice? We're the same size.
That's why Carole invited you.
Rarely does that happen where I can look somebody eye to eye. I'm always looking like this. They're always looking like that.
Yeah,
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Carole, for joining us here this morning. You know, you've mentioned a lot of items there from the standpoint of how it's going to affect the value, especially here in the Bay Area. And yet, that was one of my questions that I had written down, and you touched on it from the standpoint of loan limits adjustments. Usually that occurs in about November of every year. And they have decided to forestall that until sometime in the first quarter of next year. And so my question is, you know, that will impact values. So do you have kind of an idea of how much that's going to impact? Because that's going to really change the market there.
Yeah, I think it will impact to some degree, but if you remember what I just told you, we're still at 25% all cash. And when these people go to apply for loans, that 25 to 30%, if they need a loan, they will be able to qualify. See, the part that's going to suffer is going to be the low end that doesn't, that's out there trying to get the FHAs and trying to put 3 to 5% down. And I think the government will start to do some creative programs for them that the government's going to back part of it because they're going to have to, because otherwise they're going to look really bad. But at the end of the day, the people that need a loan that live in this valley, that are up in that upper tier, they'll be able to get through all the rules, regulations, and hoops. But sure, it's going to affect our market. But remember what I just told you. Even at the low end now, you know who's going to drive it? The REITs, the hedge funds, the investment bankers. They have more money than God. They don't need, you know what they do? They buy it all cash, and then they go to the bank and refi and buy 300 more.
Right.
It's the way the world works now.
Yeah, it is. And you know, it's interesting. Last sales transaction that I was involved in, we had some all-cash buyers.
Yes.
And the seller purposely chose a owner-occupied 95% down buyer. So it's going to take that out in the market, you know, from your standpoint of your sellers out there actually, and who they, because they can be discriminated as far as who they take.
Just stay on those loans.
Yeah.
Stay with those lenders.
Those owner-occupied buyers need that market. Anybody have any questions, Carole, while she's still here? We all good? Okay. Yeah, thank you very much for joining us here. One last item I wanted to touch on Dave's presentation to emphasize on the flood insurance. You know, you have two types of calamity insurance, that's flood insurance and earthquake insurance. Earthquake is not required as part of the loan, but flood insurance is. If you can't get that flood insurance, you got no loan. So it's very important that we have flood insurance, especially in this valley, because we have a lot of creeks that apply to your being in a flood zone, and your property will be at risk. So when you list that property, you really have to research that out. Also from the standpoint of if it is in a flood zone, the elevation, really that's the listing agent's job to really get going on that, not the buyer agent. So when you list that property, you find out it's a flood zone, it'll help you in marketing if you have that question actually resolved. So want to keep that in mind. Now, you have part of the work involved here, not just the leadership of the association. We call upon you to join us in our efforts to actually make it more easier for our buyers and sellers to deal in real estate. And that's when we send out a red alert. So I suspect that we will probably be sending out a red alert for you to contact our Congress people, Honda and Laughlin, from the standpoint of doing a moratorium on that flood insurance. So if you get it, please respond, please do your part and call them. All right, with that, I want to thank you for joining us here for the last general meeting of the year and wish you a very successful next year. Thank you.